Citizen Talks is a podcast series brought to you by TRT World Citizen, featuring discussions with humanitarians and activists, artists, and changemakers, exploring the global humanitarian issues that shape our society and the world at large.
Welcome to Citizen Talks. I'm your host Hatice Keskin, and today we have with us Sümeyra Özdemir, a clinical psychologist and a key figure in Turkey's groundbreaking shadow teaching program for people with disabilities. Today we will talk about societal inclusivity with a focus on people with disabilities. Welcome, Sümeyra, to our program. It's lovely to have you here with us. First of all, can you introduce yourself in more detail and share your insights on the broader topic of disability inclusion in society?
Thank you for welcoming us. It's a pleasure to here with you. I'm Sümeyra Özdemir, as you said. I'm clinical psychologist and I'm lecturer at a shadow teaching program for disability people in Fatih Sultan Mehmet University. I'm passionate about understanding people. So that's why I'm in this topic. While I'm working as psychologist at my university, people told me frequently said, you can understand the disability people and you can change their lifestyles or their obstacles on their ways. So that's why I'm that tools and searching about what we can do more about them.
Let's dwell more on the things on what we could do about them. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that we can do as individuals for people with disabilities in various sectors such as education, employment, and public spheres?
I think this process, it should be a culture. You know, it should be inclusive culture that individuals can create. We have power and we have role in this path. Mm-hmm. And this should progress from society to politics. If our people inclusively embrace individuals with disabilities, public order will have to adapt this accordingly. Mm-hmm. So we can process and we can require multifaceted approach to address like physical or social or additional barriers. We can take some steps for greater inclusion. Mm-hmm. Like education. We can ensure accessible process in our environments like schools or education institutions should prioritize accessibility by providing like elevators or ramps or assistive technologies. And educators should adopt inclusive learning teaching strategies and that cater to diverse other people with disabilities. And employment. We should see that our people or disability people can get job. Mm-hmm. And so we can promote inclusive hiring practice or providing reasonable accommodations and public spaces. And we should physically accessible spaces. Public spaces including buildings or cinemas, social theater centers, systems or sidewalks, we can ensure design that accessible for mm-hmm. individuals with disabilities and promote inclusive community agreements mm-hmm. to eliminate these physical, social and additional barriers. We can create a world where everyone can learn, can live without any obstacles.
Mm-hmm. I think the notion that you said we should embed this into our culture. If we embed people with disabilities, realize their existence, know that there are invisible disabilities, physical disabilities, mental disabilities, and if we embed this into our culture, every initiative that we do, every project that we start, every building that we're going to build, or every educational system we're going to start, or every technological advancement we're going to do, is going to be based on people with disabilities. It is going to include people with disabilities once it's embedded in our culture. The more we provide an inclusive society for them, I think the more inclusive the systems that we design will be for them. That's what I got from what you're saying.
Yes, I observe.
That's the message that I got from what you just said. Can you provide us with any specific initiatives, for example, the shadow teaching program that you mentioned, of successful inclusions that you find particularly inspiring and beneficial for people with disabilities?
Okay. Yes, it will be a bit strange, but I want to talk about my university inclusive technologies or projects. Our shadow teaching program, as you mentioned, that this program in Turkey is the first program for shadow teaching for disabled people. We ensure that our people from preschool to higher education and their employment, we can support them to their path. The shadow teaching is they are on the backstage,
The teachers are on
the
the backstage.
teachers, yes.
Yep.
They are like really shadow, and they are supporting from them to get their life. Any obstacles, they can move around that, and they can moving their life with independence. And as you said, technology is the greatest supporting them, because inclusivity with their special needs, assistive technology helps them to writing or understanding or helping to talking about.
Exactly.
We said that education can empower this path for them. Inclusive schools and educational practice, another side of, and employment, hiring them with their special needs and with their
uniqueness. And I think another important factor is, going back to our first question, our first topic, the more we include them in society, it's not actually benefiting people with disabilities, it's benefiting the people around them. Knowing that their existence, knowing that there are different kind of people around them, will help individuals who do not have a visible or a physical disability to understand and realize that there are people who are different and who have to. So the more that they are together in areas that are not specified. So from what I understood, the shadow teaching program for people with disabilities is not a separate system. It is to allow a person with a disability to be included in the same class as people that show a normal developmental process.
Yes.
So this not only helps the person with a disability to adapt to their environment, but also those children or individuals to adapt to that individual as well, to that person with disability. So I think it's a very good program. Instead of separating them from the society completely, we are including them into the society, thus going back to what we just said, embedding them into our culture.
Yes, they are in the same room and they are in the same time, not the separate one.
Exactly. And I think that's very important. We kind of touched upon this, but I think it's important to highlight it once again. Some of the common barriers that individuals with disabilities face when it comes to full inclusion in society. We don't have to talk about it country specific. We can talk about it on a global scale, because everywhere around the world, people with disabilities are usually often left out of the conversation, especially during times of war. People with disabilities are hardly mentioned. We know that the rights of people with disabilities during wartime has only recently been acknowledged by the United Nations. So that is also another important factor that we have to highlight. So what are some of the barriers that you would want to mention to our viewers? Some of the most basic things that we should be careful of.
Okay. I think the common barrier is that prejudice.
Yes.
It's just one word. It's basic, and it's, if you don't believe the individuals with disabilities or special needs, don't need to go to cinema. You don't embrace the cinema accessible. Or if you believe that the person who needs with special needs can't learn with other people, with other students, you can't do any practice of them. So that's why the barriers going on step by step on their sides, the obstacles. Because we should understood that we are the obstacles. Our minds have a lot of obstacles. If we understand, if we get the point, we can taking them in our minds, in our lives, so we can do social or educational or physical obstacles away from our way. We can be together, all the aspects our community with disabilities or genders or any kinds of people, you know. We should take our prejudice from our minds.
And the only way to do that is through educating ourselves and being and allowing people with disabilities to be included in the society, to realize that they actually can do the things that you think they can't, or they want to do the things that you find very normal, but for them it becomes a luxury. Watching a cinema, like you said, going to the cinema becomes a luxury for them, something that's extremely normal for you. Or going to a restaurant, which is, you know, I'm hungry, let me pick a restaurant. But for a person with a disability, for example, a person with a wheelchair has to look whether that restaurant is disabled friendly, does it have a ramp access, is it suitable for me and my caregiver, would we be comfortable in that environment? It becomes a luxury for them. And in order for them to not be a luxury, like you said, we have to remove the barriers, the prejudices, in order to remove the barriers.
Yes.
I think you've answered my other question, how can we break down these barriers? Like we said, through education.
Accepting differences.
Accepting differences, definitely. Any other points that you want to add to this? Educating ourselves, including them into the society, will break down prejudices, but it's a cycle that needs to be broken. There's that, we need to break that cycle of including them into societies to break down barriers.
Yes, we need to change our standpoint. Just we should take these steps. We should take another steps to inclusive world. We will be happier.
Definitely,
you know,
definitely.
all of us.
Exactly. Everyone has the right to a certain standard of life. And it's our responsibility to make sure that everyone has that right. Because I don't know if it's the correct saying, but we're going to grow old one day. Old people also require accessibility. And when we talk about accessibility, we don't just refer to people with disabilities. Let me just make that clear. We talk about people who have chronic illnesses, for example, or people who are old who cannot hear as well, walk as well, talk as well as they used to. So accessibility is for all of us. I remember I had a broken leg and I had to be on crutches for 6 months, and I couldn't use the bathroom in the school because it wasn't accessible. It was a short-term disability, and this was an issue for me. So accessibility in itself, the word itself, the message it gives is inclusion for every single individual out there, based on their differences, without regards to their differences would be a more correct saying. So that is why it's a very important topic that we have to highlight constantly, and we have to, again, I'm repeating this, but embed to our traditions, to our culture, to the way we think, the way we initiate a project, the way we act, the way we talk as well.
We are talking about person with disabilities, but I think all of us have special needs.
Exactly.
I have another special needs, and my brothers or my sisters they have another special needs. But this topic, we should understand and we should awareness of about this. We should take our obstacles,
Yes.
their obstacles,
Mm-hmm.
and these obstacles, we take this way on them.
Exactly.
Because we should another things to taking these obstacles. All of us have special needs and we have something part of disabilities, and if we are awareness of that, we can do inclusive world, all of us.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Let's move on to a different topic. Let's talk about another discrimination within a discrimination, and that is gender discrimination
Yeah.
within the discrimination of people with disabilities. Can you share some of the insights or the unique experiences that you've maybe witnessed or read or researched?
Okay, it's gender discrimination and disability discrimination comes from one point, oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have two of them, you have double the oppression.
Yes.
So that's why they have, paid less
Mm-hmm.
than other people,
Mhm.
or more likely to experience sexual harassments or face discrimination, hiring or promotions discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
We should about the acceptance of gender
Mm-hmm.
and disabilities they have. So we should collect data and taking laws for to protect them
Mm-hmm.
and do something about our role in the face of this discrimination and oppression.
Yes, exactly. Another point in the people with disabilities and gender discrimination is caregiving. I mean, women are more likely to take care of people with disabilities compared to men. Women are expected to care for people with disabilities rather than men, even though it's considered a hard work labor, because it's very difficult. And, it's for many, if it's a relative, it's an unpaid labor. That is also a discrimination that we see when it comes to gender and people with disabilities. And I also want to focus on another topic, which is more sensitive, but if you have any insights that you can share with us with the recent ongoing atrocities in Gaza and other parts of the world, I think we have to highlight that people with disabilities face 10 times, maybe even more challenges than others in terms of escaping, with the escape routes not being accessible. With, for example, there are sometimes warnings that are either via sound or via letters that are not accessible to people with limited visuals or audio. There are people who are left disabled. I mean, we're talking about a ceasefire or an end to the war in Gaza, but no one talks about the aftermath. This war is never going to end.
Yes.
Because the mental disorders that the children, especially children, have faced, the physical disabilities, the mental disabilities will be carried with them for the rest of their lives. And there must be research on these factors. How are we going to help these people? We're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder at a very high level. And I think these are some of the factors that we have to highlight. If there's anything else that I've missed or you want to add. I remember when I first researched about people with disabilities, it was about the war in Ukraine and how they were the only ones left in a certain area because no one was willing to take them with them to escape. And I think that it's a similar case in Gaza where people are trying to survive. Where everything's a luxury. When we were talking about accessibility, even accessibility is a sort of luxury at the moment there. But I think we have to emphasize that, with the aftermath of the war, there is going to be, the aftermath of the war, it's not going to end. for children who've experienced traumas that are unimaginable, for people who will have chronic illnesses because they were malnutrition, they did not have the enough nutrition or clean water that they should have, or because they've lost their body parts. And I think that's an important point to highlight at the moment.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your emotions. It's so heartbreaking ongoing on this side. This is the not showing part of us,
Exactly.
disability persons. But I have researched that before 2 years. I'm researched, and I found that the 50% in Palestinians have disabilities. 50%.
50%.
2 years ago,
2 years
now we don't know. We don't know
don't
because the Israeli occupation have breaking bonds. After that, absolutely all of them have some physical or spiritual or mental disorders, disabilities.
We have to also acknowledge that this is a weapon used by the oppressor as well, because killing is recorded, but when you leave a person with a disability who cannot function in society, this isn't recorded. So it's a tactic used by, unfortunately, the oppressor. That is also something that we need to highlight. I didn't know the 50%. I'm shocked. I think it's way higher now, and it's going to stay like that for a very long time. Let's start our conclusion. Despite all the challenges that we're facing, all the horrible events that we're witnessing, how do you envision a society that is truly inclusive of people with disabilities when you consider both the challenges and opportunities? We've talked about prejudice, we've talked about embedding it into our culture. What is your vision of a society?
If everyone could find their pieces on our society, we will be better together, Imagine that. Some person have disabilities or obsessions, and he can find programs errors, and another have sounds sensitivity. She can produce a great imaginary musical show, yes. One lists their depths of history, and another ones give them to future, to our future.
Exactly.
This is the way we should all parts of our community together, and we will take the way together.
Exactly. So making use of our differences for a better society, making use of the differences that we have, like you said, sound sensitive, vision sensitive. We can make use of these kind of people, like you said, if we have systems and the tools. An ideal society would be having the systems and the tools to be able to have them be part of the society and contribute to society. So, and finally, what role can individuals, thus communities, thus policymakers, play in creating a more inclusive and equitable future for everyone, regardless of their ability or gender?
As we mentioned about individuals shouldn't wait anyone, any politicians, and politicians without waiting for society.
Yes.
They can act all the part of their role. Individuals, challenge your ideas, be an ally, support, learn, and act, say something, do something.
Exactly.
And the society, for society, community, we have communities. Be supportive, this discrimination, this oppression, take them our ways and create welcoming, inclusive spaces, inclusive understanding society plans and policymakers. Yes, we have some policies, some laws, and it's going good, but our awareness is so low.
Still
That's
very low.
yes, we should embrace them for all of us. And policymakers should clear expectations
Yes.
and goals and take its actions, and then they should consult with stakeholders.
Exactly.
They should ask them what happened with this law, with this practice. What about we should do something more? And that's why our roles in this way, if we take our roles, we are going together and we are doing inclusive world, inclusive
Exactly.
culture.
Exactly. That's very important what you said. Be an ally, act.
Yes.
Demand. For example, if 100 people come up and say to a cafe, where's your ramp? Why don't you have a ramp? They will have to put a ramp. That's
Yep.
how it works. If everyone says, why is this website not technologically assistive? Why doesn't it have assistive technology? Why doesn't it have assistive technology? If everyone asks this, if everyone refuses to go, I remember when I was young and more active in these kind of things, I refused to go to shops that did not have a ramp. And I tried to explain to people that if a person with a disability cannot make use of this environment, I will not make use of this environment. So demanding something, we should never underestimate the power of one person, because one person turns into 5, turns into 10, turns into 100, thousands, and that would become a part of the community, and thus it would affect the policymakers.
Yeah.
So as we come to the end of our very interesting, very eye-opening discussion, I want to thank you once again, Sumeyra, for being with us. I think it's a very important. I think we've highlighted very important topics that are more individual based. So we didn't demand policymakers to act. We asked people to become aware of their surroundings, because that's the main focus that we want. We want people to be aware. When you're thinking of something, think of everyone. Be inclusive. Don't discriminate. Remove your prejudices. Demand for their rights, because you would never know when you would need that same rights as that person that you supported or you ignored. So thank you once again, and thank you all for listening. Thank you.
I want to say just one word.
Sure.
We can change the world.
Yes, we can.
All of us.
All of
and
us.
If you don't believe that, believe
Yes.
it. We can change it.
We are changing it.
Yes, we are changing it. So do it your role.
Exactly.
I should say that. And thank you for opportunity to share my thoughts. It's the vital topics we should discuss on.
Exactly.
Thank you for this.
A very important topic. So thank you all, and make sure you demand and educate yourself on people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.